Welcome to our second podcast. We got to work on an intro.
We got to get an intro.
Okay, so...
Or edit this out.
We're never editing anything. So this is our second podcast.
We like to think we're more prepared for this one.
We have Bibles.
And notes.
And a friend. So we brought a friend with us today, Katie Keene.
Hi.
Do you want me to edit your name out?
Too late now. We're never editing. That's what she did in the first one. Kacie Bain. I'm like, ah!
It's my full name. People can identify me. Oh, so Katie's just hanging out. She may chime in if she wants. If you
She may not, and that's okay.
If you hear a third voice laughing at us, just know it's Katie.
Background giggles.
Bring the giggles. Katie's gonna bring the giggles. Okay, so today's topic is love the sinner, hate the sin. I can't tell you like how many times in church I personally heard that, especially like just trying, I mean, not even with my sexuality, just anything. Like, I mean, it could be anything. Let me try to think of some examples of what other than my...
So April literally gave me homework. She emailed me this quote and then several scriptures to read. And so I actually dusted off an old Bible and opened it and read it, which has been a really, really long time. I can't even think of...
Tell them how long it's been.
Oh, it's a Precious Moments Bible.
People can appreciate that.
Which, yeah, so... Oh, my baptism, look, I didn't know what date it was. It was in August of 84.
At St. Joseph's.
Yep. Yeah, I never filled out the rest of this Bible.
The funniest thing happened whenever I gave Kacie her homework. I texted her last night to ask if she was reading it. She was like, go ahead.
I took a picture of my Bible and I sent it to her. I said, yeah, I dusted it off. I'm like sitting at home on a Friday night reading my Bible. Pigs really can fly.
That is so funny. The people who know you who are listening to this right now are like, what?
Far cry from shots at Hoptinger.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. So I couldn't really tell you why I had a problem with that saying growing up, but I never felt good when someone told me that. I never felt loved, which was the point of the whole saying, was to like make a person feel loved when you were doing something that was different than they thought you should be doing. So they thought you should be behaving differently, acting differently. So that's your sin. And then that means different things to different people. But they wanted to wrap it in love. Mm-hmm. So that's where the love part came in, like love the sinner. No, we love you as a person, but we hate what you're doing, basically. And they wanted to let you know, always wanted to let you know what they felt that you were doing wrong. That was sin.
Right. So where do you want to start? You want to start with judgment or you want to start with sin? Because I have thoughts on both.
So I
wrote down in my notes.
I kind of wrote down like in your homework.
My homework.
So that's why I thought that it would be, I wanted to break this down, and the two things that stuck out to me was like I always felt very judged by that statement, and then, you know, how are you telling me that I'm wrong in what I'm doing? So the word sin, like how do you know what I'm doing is sin? Was another part that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So that's why I got those two things out of that. So let's start with judgment.
Okay. So I feel like I'm probably always going to bring this back to maybe the translation of things, kind of going back to the Bible was not written in English, or people didn't speak English back then. Plus you add in the filter of it was another human writing down their account of things. Then you add in all the translations and all the people who have maybe removed or changed stuff along the way. So I think it's really hard for me to just ever accept any of the words as they just are. So like the one thing you sent me was Matthew 7, verse 1 and 2. I didn't even remember. Is it chapter?
She started to speak Christianese.
And it was like, do not judge others so that God will not judge you, for God will judge you in the same way you judge others. So at first I'm like, okay, if you just take that for what it says, it's like, oh, God is gonna judge you if you do wrong. But that's where I think we're maybe getting, that's looking at God as this external being, like Catholicism and Christianity and all these religions seem to always do. But if you look at it bigger as like God is the universe, is life, like it's all one and the same, versus this external being, it's kind of like if you are negative in how you view other people or how you view yourself, that is what the universe is going to give back to you, which ties into all the kind of more new age things of your life is a reflection of you manifest, like you get out of the universe what you put into it. Like I saw some sign the other day and I can't remember exactly what it was, and it might have been like in like a bar or something, but it was about something like if you're negative, like you'll meet a whole lot more assholes or something. So I don't think it's so much that like if you're judging, like if I judge you, then God is judging me. It's more another way of saying like you're bringing it on yourself, right? Because it all comes down to the kind of purity of heart. So if you're putting negativity out there, you're going to get negativity back.
Yeah. So it's kind of like karma, so to speak, like
a little bit. Well, and like we create our own reality based on, it's a reflection of kind of our purity of heart or positive versus negative or whatever that may be, because like everything is connected, everything is energy, blah blah blah, like what you put out is going to affect what comes back,
and that's by design of the universe.
Yes, exactly, by design.
So
because that's the whole process of get to a place where you're all positive and not judging others, and then that's how you can manifest and have these better lives. And but it always comes back to you, like
your intention.
Yeah, treat others how you want to be treated. Like I feel like there's so many different.
In the same chapter, actually.
It is Matthew somewhere. 7. I did read that somewhere. Yeah. And, well, because then it goes on to say like, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find. So it's more like, be good and you'll get good. It's not God as this other person judging us.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how I interpreted it. Or I could see another interpretation to be, other than just taking it as like, oh, God's judging me because I judged April.
Yeah, I got you. I like it. And so the way, what you just said about like, that's how the universe is designed, that you're going to get back what you put out. That's what I would probably, to use Christianese, is like, that's God's law. God's laws are set up and established in the world. And that's what I think that is actually meant by like God's laws are in operation all the time. And like Jesus even said that he came not to abolish the laws, but to overcome them, to show you how to
and that's
live
where I think
above that, like, or
right. And I think the
that.
laws, like we interpret that as these like
sorry, we thought we chose like this nice little
serene
quiet
part, but
people are also enjoying this part.
Rowdy children,
which is fine.
But like laws, like think of the word, like how we define the word law is like rules, very specific rules of what you can and can't do. And I don't think it was meant to be taken into these specific actions. They're bigger and broader terms. So
that's good.
Laws are things like if what you put out, you're going to get back. Like that is a law, not do not take the Lord's name in vain, or we kind of talked about, but whatever all the other rules are. I don't think it was meant to be that specific. Exactly. Like that's not not a law. That
no
can't
bacon, people.
Yeah, that
You're
can't be a
God's
law.
laws.
If you had bacon.
And if,
there's no So if you've ever eaten bacon, you know we weren't meant to not eat bacon.
Because it's delicious.
Right.
No, but like this is not like making fun of people who believe that, but like it's to show like a bigger meaning, a deeper meaning maybe behind what was intended. That's man's way of trying to figure it out.
And so kind of going back to what we were saying earlier about the different meanings of the different words. So one of the meanings of the word judgment that you sent me in my homework email was judge was to like separate.
Yeah.
Choose or separate. So that's very different than to like look down upon, which is how we seem to define judgment now.
Yep.
So if you take it in that context, it's kind of like if you separate yourself from the universe, like the universe will continue to separate you. Like you're separating yourself.
Yeah. Yep. So the actual translation of the Greek word judge means to separate, to put asunder, to pick out, to select, or to choose. And I think that's what it's like. I think going back to that original phrase that's said a lot is like, oh, love the sinner, hate the sin, is like you're choosing what you feel is best for a certain person. So it's almost like that's where I would feel judged, like per that.
Right. Well, all right.
Does that make sense?
Right, but talking about
Trying to bring
sin,
it back to that.
because then I started to do some research into, okay, well, what does sin mean? And I ended up on some very, very, well, I guess it's a Catholic website, but it lists 22, well, that's what I kind of know, even though I'm not a good Catholic, 22 biblical words for sin and what they teach us. So I started to look up some of them, and one of them, let me find my notes here, was that it means to like miss the mark or wander from the path or something that is broken, specifically broken into pieces. So that's the same as separated, as judge. So if you look at sin as that, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about this morning about how we compartmentalize different parts of ourselves. If we're all like broken pieces, maybe that's what it's talking about in terms of sin. Not that you did this wrongful specific act, but sin is actually a much bigger word, that you're broken in a lot of ways. So it's you don't hate the person who is broken, you hate the fact that you are broken. And I don't think hate really belongs anywhere in the Bible, but whatever. But like that's what you're trying to. So judgment is separate. Sin is just the fact that you're removed from God, meaning which all ties back to kind of this bigger thing of piecing yourself together within your own heart, which then makes you one with God.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if any of that makes sense. I'm kind of working through it all at this moment.
It does. So to piggyback off of what you're saying, sin is like missing the mark. And that actually is the literal translation of what that word means in Hebrew and in Greek.
Right.
Like translates to miss the mark, to be off the path, that sort of thing.
And I think we're making that too specific.
But there's no evil to that. It's
No.
the point. And Jesus is just saying, like, I don't want you to sin anymore. I don't want you to miss it anymore.
Right.
I want you to get back over here. So I think even the message of sin is completely different than what's even being
Exactly.
taught.
I don't think it's these small little acts that we've passed judgment on and defined as good or bad. I think it's more this recognizing that we're not one with God in terms of super enlightened like Jesus was. We're in process still. We're broken and putting our pieces back together. But that's why we're here. That's what we're here to do.
100%.
So it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's part of the process.
Right. And it's not all these little things, these little acts that we've defined as sin. I think it's a bigger word that's just saying we're not enlightened to the point that we fully understand where we came from and where we're going. Because I did notice while I was reading this, Jesus talks a lot about that, like I'm going where you can't go. You don't know where I've come from and where I'm going and all that kind of stuff. Because I think that is much bigger picture.
Yeah.
And you can't go where he's going until you figure out all these bigger truths that he was trying to teach. And until you figure them out, you're missing the mark. You're off the path.
You're sinning.
But that word just, I feel like we've ironically missed the mark on that word.
Played.
Yeah.
So we are sinning. But no.
Because doesn't he say that? Like don't some of the prayers say that we're here, we're created as sinners?
Yeah.
Like that's why we're here, is because we're separated, and the whole point is to get back.
Yeah. But there's such an evil and bad component to the word sin in church. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. I think that we're just imperfect people.
Yeah.
And to your point, we were put here, all of us knowing that, and that everybody's goal is to try to bridge that and be more whole.
Yeah.
Right, because this is
be more whole.
Instead
right,
of
as
perfect.
opposed
Right, 'cause
to
perfect isn't the right word either.
and
'cause
as
those
opposed to
can have different-
broken, which is sin or judgment.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the design, because we come here to learn, and this is the world or the realm, and now I'm going to start to sound pretty woo woo, but
This is
where
our schoolhouse.
exactly where we
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
pain, and where we find the path, but it's messy, and that's what it's supposed to be, because everything is no pain and nothing but happiness and peace and well-being in the other realms. This is hard knock school,
Yeah.
but by design.
And I think a lot of it is based on experiences we have here, and if we box ourselves into this place of defined sin, and we don't have experiences that we might need to have here to further grow and develop,
Which
we
may
might
be
be
messy,
limiting.
right?
It could be messy,
Right.
and then they've also been defined as sin, so you can't experience things, or that you put that box on yourself or on others that you have these expectations for, and that doesn't allow you to grow because you're stuck
Yes.
in these parameters that were defined by someone, something else, or by even ourselves. I mean, we can do that to ourselves as well. So we're missing our experiences to become more whole.
That
Yeah,
is so
absolutely.
good. So here's what's happening from a church perspective. You try not to sin, right? You try not to miss the mark, or maybe that's my personal experience. Is that, and I know tons of other people who live that way. Just try not to sin, try not to miss the mark, try not to be off the path, do anything bad. The difference of what you were just saying and that is to realize when you are sinning. It's just it's gonna
Right.
happen, and just to realize when you are maybe off the path, that's like your inner voice is saying something different than what you're actually doing, and just to be aware enough to realize that, and then to come back on the path that's meant for you. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
And and you're making the choice. It's your experience and how you're growing in this place
Yeah.
to be more connected, to be more whole.
Yep.
And so
So
it's those defining moments, I think, is what you're getting at
Yes.
too. And when you realize you're in an experience, and maybe not defining that as good or bad, but how are you going to react and how are you going to move forward?
And
those are
where's the
best
lesson?
ways-
Like,
yeah,
the
to
whole
make
point
you
of being
whole.
here is like there's always a lesson, there's always something to learn. So even when bad things happen to you, or you do bad things or whatever, that is all part of like the growth process. So you can't live in this box of never experiencing the world, exactly what you were just saying, because then you won't grow and learn, and you have to go through all these learning stages to get to the realizations that Jesus got to,
Yeah.
that you realize is just so much bigger.
So I love this because I lived in that box that you talked about. And what happens is, like, you feel like you're not sinning because you're not doing anything like that's, I don't know, defined in scripture as being bad, if that makes sense. So like you're trying to follow like the rule book as best as you can, but like what you're doing is not experiencing anything that's meant to teach you. So the result of that, the symptoms that you feel are frustration, you feel fear, you don't feel peace.
Not love
You're
necessarily.
not
Yeah.
love. No, I felt disconnected from love a lot, and so, and the Bible talks about how like how you can judge somebody is like look at the fruit of their life. And like you can tell where they're at in life is based off of their fruit in their life. And that doesn't mean, I love how it says that, because it's not saying, oh, they're bad or they're good. It's like, oh no, that person has a lot of joy in their life. That person has a lot of peace in their life. And or you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like those are things, evidence, so to speak, of being on the path or off the path. Does that make sense? So like, I'll use your experience where you like were living in the days that I first met you, right? And I don't want to define any of it.
Right.
That's why I said that. Like, so when I first met you, where you were living, and then like why you may have had to have been there, and like where you are now, and I wanna
Right.
talk
Well,
about
so I think first we have to point out we're not saying everyone go out and sin because you have to experience life. It's more
Right.
redefine what the word sin means, and it's not so specific as you can and can't do this. It's more this realization that you are separated from God, which also I think means separated from yourself. And so it always ties back to being your true self, like who you want to be and who you just feel deep inside, not what is society tells you to be, your family, your friends, the church, whatever. It's just being true to you, however that looks. And like for you, a lot of that was, you know, coming to grips with your sexuality and where that meets into, you know, your spirituality. And for me, it was more, I just always cared so much about what other people thought, and that was always my focus. And I didn't never stop and question, okay, what do I really want my life to look like? And I actually, so I mean, I was a bit of a party girl, I guess, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But deep down, I didn't want to be that person. And I had fun while I was doing it, and I have great friends and great memories. So I don't look at it as any of it as a mistake, but it's more, I just always knew deep down that's not how I wanted to be spending my time. And so it took a long time for me to really, first of all, recognize that that voice was there, and then start to listen to it. And then now I'm in the process of starting to trust it and be okay with the fact that I'm going to be home at Friday night reading a Bible, not out. I mean, I'm fine with that now, but for a while it was a weird place, because I was just like, oh my God, I'm not cool anymore. I'm not, like, I cared so much about the external versus what was internal. So that was my separation from my true self, my judgment, my sin. And so it's all about recognizing that and putting the pieces back together and making yourself whole again, and one, which is then one with God. And I just think that so many times, and I get hung up on a lot of these words too. It took me a long time to even feel comfortable saying the word God again, because it just comes with all this preconceived notions of what I was taught. And I know that word can turn a lot of people off that aren't at all religious. And I've just now come to grips kind of with saying it again, even though it's still, every time I say it, I'm like, but it's not the God you're thinking I'm talking about when I say it. And, you know, but that's again, me caring what other people think versus just what I feel.
I'm in the same boat with you on that.
Coming to grips with some of these words again.
You've said like something more. Like, I knew that there was something more, and like, that's God to me. And that's there, just that there's something bigger that we're meant to be connected to. And I think that what's been defined in churches, Katie had mentioned earlier about like putting God on a pedestal, like almost unreachable. And I think that's the image that a lot of people have in their mind.
And I hate that, because that's not true. I just don't believe that that's right. And so it is, to me, it is just more something more. I've come to grips a little bit more with the word God because it's easier to say, but I think it also just then rubs people the wrong way, because they start to think of whatever baggage from their childhood and their upbringing comes along with that word.
Would you say, just to tie Christianese into this, would you say, like, if you were to not listen to that voice, as far as like you pursuing things that are more purposeful for your life, and were to just put that off to the side and be like, I'm not going to listen to that, and then you go back to almost like, I'm using Christian terms, okay?
Right.
Your old way of life, so to speak, like just back to what you were doing before, not listening to that. Would you consider that missing the mark?
Well,
or you see what I'm saying?
Right, but I couldn't at this point. And that's why I think the process is necessary. So timing is so important, because I found those writings I found from 10 years ago that talk a lot about how I feel or how I felt last year, but I wasn't ready to deal with them then. And so kind of actually in some of these scriptures, it talks about like how the people couldn't get to Jesus because it wasn't his time yet or whatever. It wasn't my time yet to deal with them. So I had these writings, I put them away about feeling like there was more for my life that I wasn't pursuing, and these moments where I would think of these reasons to not like go out drinking, other than just say to my friends, I don't want to do that, I just want to stay home. It wasn't my time yet to deal with those. I had to then go through the whole process to get to this point a year ago where something had to change. Like it wasn't even a conscious decision, just something had to change. And then now I'm at a point where I couldn't go back. I mean, am I every now and then gonna have a night out and let loose? Sure, probably. But I can't go back to the way I viewed life
Yeah.
then, because
Unlearning
I
what
just,
you know now.
right, because I don't know, I'm just now in this deep place that I can't come back up.
I love it. Nor do you want to.
I don't want to.
That's where you want to be.
Right, but it does, I mean, it's not always easy, because then that creates some separation in some relationships in my life that is hard as you change, but...
I like that. So would you feel like sin, missing the mark, not good or bad, just missing the mark, has played a part in your transformation and you growing from this person to this person?
It has to. Like, that's the whole point. Like, that is the whole point of why we are here and why we are born, quote unquote, sinners. The whole point is to go through that process, that transformation and that learning.
Yeah.
So we have to sin. We've messed up that word. That word now means so many things to everybody that I don't think it's intended to mean.
I like it a lot. Katie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I just think, I was actually just sitting here thinking, like, how can we redefine that statement? What is hate the sin, not the sinner?
Love the sinner, hate the sin. Yeah.
I just have a hard time connecting the word hate with anything related
I know.
to love. For me, that's too strong.
Yeah.
And sin is very strong, as we've kind of talked about the actual true definition. So it's almost like a... So, sorry, what is it again?
Love the sinner.
Love the sinner. And again, the sinner,
Is this
I just
a
feel
scripture,
like...
or is this just a
That's
Christianese
Christianese.
quote?
Another,
That's
yeah.
Christian.
Oh, so
I
it's just a
think
saying.
it's a way that we could redefine it, like, I don't know.
I think it should be love the person, love the process. Like,
Yeah,
love it all.
yeah.
Like, I get it. You're
love that.
broken into little pieces and you're working on putting it all together, and good luck. It's all beautiful and
Yeah.
you're going to figure it out in the end.
And so am
there's-
I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we.
And there's some really bad things where it could, maybe love is not what you feel with the sin that's happening or whatever.
Right.
Or like, understand the person, understand the process. Or like, love the person, understand the process.
Exactly, because it's recognizing that everybody is in a different place in their lives, and everyone is in a different place of their bigger evolution. And everybody, like, I believe that we're here to learn everything, so the good and the bad. So people doing sins, quote unquote, bad things, like, maybe, and it's not an excuse, and it's not saying it's okay or it's good, but it's just recognizing that maybe that's what they have to go through in this life. They have to learn that. And I just love this analogy, because there's so much about paradox and sit in the paradox and yin and yang and opposites and all that. But there was something when I was listening to one of the Kabbalah things that was saying there has to be opposites. So you wouldn't know, and I said this morning,
Right,
you wouldn't
earlier,
know heat if you didn't know cold. Because if you didn't know cold, if it was just heat would just be in essence. Like, that would just be something we didn't even recognize because we don't know the opposite.
Yeah.
So you have to know every side of everything. So you've got to know the bad stuff, but that doesn't make it bad. It's just part of the process.
It's just part of it that we've put labeled bad.
We've labeled bad, yeah.
And I just don't think it's our job or responsibility to define that for someone else.
Exactly,
That's
because you're never in that person's shoes. And I feel like I'm sure there's all kinds of Jesus quotes about that.
Jesus quotes.
WWJD, like, about that.
I heart Jesus quotes.
Yeah.
We really need to bring those bracelets back, actually.
Yeah.
No, but like, I think I agree with both of you, and to what you just said, Katie, about it's none of our business, basically, what another person's going through, except for just to love them and support them and try to understand that they're in process, I think is our biggest job. And I think that's where we mess up. And that's what's being misunderstood and misused.
And that goes back to the first quote of don't judge others.
Yeah.
And like, God or the universe will judge you, because you've got to get to that place of purity and heart to where you don't label what somebody else is doing or another person as bad. You just understand.
Yep. And that's what the scripture goes on to say. Jesus continues talking, and he's like, don't judge the speck in someone else's eye when you've got
that
a board
was a
in
weird
your,
translation,
when
like
you-
a board in your eye.
yeah, when you've got a plank in
That
your
sounds
own.
painful.
Literally, it was like,
But it's
someone else
probably-
has a splinter in their eye, but you have a log in yours. It was
I
odd.
love that, because it's so true. If you find yourself in any moment judging or doing that to somebody else, I mean, you should immediately turn it back around and say, why is it
Why
is
does it bother
affecting
me?
in that way?
Yeah.
What am I doing that might be similar, or what I see in that person that actually is affecting me and making me upset that they're doing it?
Yep.
Exactly. And that's
yeah.
what Michael Singer talks about, that in Untethered Soul, anything that bothers you, even as simple as somebody cuts you off in traffic and you get mad, like that is an opportunity to look inside and be like, why does that bother me? What thorn inside me is that rubbing against?
Yeah.
And instead of trying to live life avoiding all these thorns, and I think this is like a Buddhist thing with the thorns, is like remove them.
Yeah. You can
But it's
either-
always about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can either construct the world to not trigger you. So
Right.
you try to control everything around
Right.
you so you're not triggered, that thorn isn't touched inside of you, which is what the majority of us do. Or you can just try to figure out what is that thorn and take it
out. And so then these things won't bother you.
Yeah, keep triggering you. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people, especially I think same-sex relationships in the Bible, that's a very hot topic. That's super. Not everybody deals with that, but I think it's a very extreme version of some other things that are happening. But like, I've been told it's wrong, and so when someone says that based off of what we've just been talking about, it's not right for you. And so that's what you're feeling. It is not right for you. And I think what may be triggering other people as far as like pointing their finger at me, maybe like I'm finally listening to my inner voice, and maybe that's what I'm just throwing out examples. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but maybe they have a hard time having courage and following their inner voice, and that may be a trigger. You see what I'm saying? Like it could, and that's two examples of like what a million different things that it could be, but like I don't know, does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, because it's hard to break away from the norm or the herd, so to speak, and go out and do your own thing and follow your heart. It's funny how there's just all these sayings, but it's hard to do that. So and I'll stick with the sheep analogy because we were watching the sheep video earlier. But like, so if everyone's sheep in a herd and then you April sheep, go out on your own and people are like, no, come back. It's like, why do we care? Maybe it's because like, oh, well, I want to go out on my own too, but I'm too scared.
Yeah.
So I want everyone to stay here.
Which is what I think Jesus was talking about in that scripture, is just saying, don't even worry about what they're doing. Focus on what's in your eye. What is in your eye? And I think that when we feel triggered based off of what someone else is doing, or we feel like a tendency to want to like call somebody out, is back to what Katie was saying.
Yeah,
It's like,
look
okay,
inside.
well, let's stop and like turn this.
Why
like,
does it bother me?
Yeah, why does this bother me?
What thorn is it touching?
So let me tell you what people tell me.
Oh gosh.
Is they're worried about, and it's a genuine worry about my soul. You see,
Because
I'm sin, like it's defined as sin, because and that goes back to like, this is why I want to tie all of this together. You see what I'm saying? Because there are things that we just started by unraveling what sin actually means, because I think a lot of it ties back to what's defined as sin, what's not defined as sin.
right. So I would say sin is not being true to yourself.
And that inner voice.
Right. So you're broken, you're external, you're separate. And so I would say if all the years you were trying to deny your heart, that was living in sin.
Yeah.
Which is complete opposite of what
And I
your
agree
Christian friends would tell
100%
you.
because I feel freedom now, and I've never felt freedom before. So like I would say, like, to say I'm free from sin, I could say that now because I feel much more whole. I still have other work to do, I'm still in process, but like I feel much more whole than I did before, like 100%.
Well, that makes sense.
That's great. Yeah.
So, but like, do y'all want to speak to that, or do you feel like that's another topic? Where it's like, no, but the reason I'm doing this is because I do love you and I'm worried about your soul. Which I feel like Jesus keeps saying, don't worry about other people's
Right.
soul.
Yeah.
Like, just worry about what's going on with you.
Right. Well, and I think, so I'm sure their concern is genuine, but again, it's unnecessary because you don't need to, this sounds weird, like to not worry about other people. It's such a fine line between like caring about other people, but I think it comes back to their missing the mark, assuming that you're sinning. And so that goes back to where is it said in this book of rules that
She meant truth. She meant book of truth. I'm just kidding.
homosexuality is wrong, and who said it, and what was the story, and is that a real story, or is that something that's been misinterpreted?
Yeah, we don't have to get into all that, but yes, I
think if somebody was responding to you or communicating with you in that way of saying, "I worry for your soul," I think that's instant judgment from their part. You know, going back, I know we kind of talked about the different judgment, but
and I feel that,
and
you feel it.
Yeah, that's automatically insinuating that there's a sin going on or there's something wrong, and again, that's them putting that on you. So, and I just think about rephrasing it. If it's true, genuine, and they care about you being a whole person or your future, I think there's other ways to phrase that where it be, you know, I'm here for you, or I may not understand you, but I love you. Or, you know what I mean? Where it's coming from a place of truth and true love from that person.
Yeah.
And I think with the way that it's being worded with that type of statement, it's instant judgment or instant put down of what that is.
You're right, because they're assuming that you need, that there's reason to worry about your soul.
Right, and that's the response back is there's no need to worry about me, but I appreciate your love and support, you know, you know, I think that's, and although it may seem to be coming from a genuine place, it's still insinuating something negative.
Oh yeah, and you feel that negativity, but you also know that they're doing the best they can in caring,
right?
You know, based off of what they know,
right? And so then this goes back to you, like when you feel that instant judgment, like if that upsets you on any level, same thing. Turn it inside. Why does it upset you? Like. So it's like you
calling me out.
Yeah, like you need to get to you told me to. You need to get to a point where if somebody says something like that to you, it doesn't bother you.
Yeah.
And there's a I forget where this comes from. Like the whole writing on the water thing, like with your hands, that you just let it pass through and it leaves no mark. Like okay.
I felt
thank
it,
you.
and then it's
thank
gone
you for your concern, and it doesn't bother you at all.
Yeah. I think it's different when it's a parent.
Oh, that's
you know what I mean?
Immediate relationships are tough.
Yeah, but I've gotten better with it, and I don't feel as much. I don't feel hurt as much because it you know what I mean? I used to feel very hurt, and I think that I have tried to work on my own. Like why am I feeling
right?
hurt?
And of course, that's a big thing for you because that is part of why you hid it for so long because the church wouldn't approve, your friends wouldn't approve, your family wouldn't approve. So that's not going to be just a one and done. Oh, okay, I've decided I'm okay with it and don't care what my parents think. I mean, that is a layered unfolding process of like continuously, and each time it'll get harder and harder the deeper you go to really, and it just sounds so bad to not care what they think, but essentially to not care what they think.
Well,
one of this just makes me think of, I'm big on quotes and things, but this one came from my granny.
Hi, Granny.
I know. Thanks, Granny. Shout out. She's up ahead and enjoying hearing this conversation.
She is with us.
So Granny that passed it down to my mom that shared it with us. So it's take it from the source. So a way to accept something that's coming from someone and take another step back from that is that nobody can make you feel like there's literally no way that
can't get wet with the word water.
Yeah, they can't make you feel. And so it's a response that you have. They can probably influence that. If somebody slapped you, that might make you feel something. But in general, with the words, it can't make you feel. It's kind of your choice. So when you take it from the source, it's accepting and understanding where they're coming from. That this is their place in their journey. You know, if I can accept and understand that, then I will not choose to feel anger or resentment.
Yeah, you choose a different reaction.
Sadness.
Or if you do, it's highlighting something. It's
Right.
highlighting a thorn, or
Back
it's highlighting
to the
something.
internal, what's internally, why is this internally affecting me, and how am I going to
Y'all,
so of course
forward.
there's
we
still
have a church.
Oh, we are.
like of course there's still of course you still have thorns when it comes to your parents and dealing with
more
this.
intimate,
You haven't really been openly talking about it with them for very long. So there's probably several thorns in there that you just work through over time.
Yeah, and it is way less thorny, for sure.
You're just plucking them off.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's good talk. So what's the phrase that you went back to? What, like,
Love the person,
understand the process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same. That still applies. So
Yeah.
like, what we just said.
Yeah.
I like the new one.
Yeah.
What did
It's
you
better
say?
than love the sinner. I said love the person, love the process. But it is true.
Process
Like you
not
can't
always fun.
necessarily always love the process, but understand or respect the process. Or like even just see the process and just understand like that person
Being
is
aware of it.
they're just we're all just doing the best we can. I mean,
And we're at different places. I think that there's such an issue with differences. You know?
Yeah.
We can talk about that next time.
Yep.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll come back now.
Repeat special
Thanks
guest.
for letting me join today.
Katie's going to end the session with a song.
Oh God.
Oh.
This is Katie right now.